The studio lights blaze across Stephen Colbert's face as he flashes his signature grin, the audience roaring with laughter, unaware that what's about to unfold will turn late-night comedy into a live battleground. Elon Musk, seated just feet away, wears that familiar half-smirk, the kind that says, "I know something you don't." The tension between showman and billionaire hums beneath the surface like static electricity. Colbert starts light. A few jokes about rockets, Mars, and billionaires playing gods. The audience chuckles. Musk nods politely, his posture rigid. Then Colbert leans forward, tone sharpening. "But Elon, some people say your companies run more on ego than innovation. That you've built a cult, not a legacy." The crowd gasps, a mix of shock and giddy curiosity. Musk's smile tightens. He pauses for a beat, eyes narrowing just enough to let viewers know. He didn't come here to play. "Stephen," Musk begins, voice low and steady, "if believing in humanity's potential makes me egotistical, then I'll gladly wear that label." The audience half applauds, half freezes. Colbert, sensing an opening, fires back with a grin. Believing in humanity's potential is one thing. Treating workers like robots is another. That's the spark. Musk's composure wavers, just slightly, before he leans in and shoots back. "At least my workers are building the future. Some people just sit behind a desk and mock it." The laughter dies instantly. The air turns heavy. Even Colbert looks momentarily stunned, unsure whether to laugh or cut to commercial. Cameras zoom in. The smirk on Musk's face replaced by something colder, defiant. The audience murmurs. The crew exchanges looks. The control room whispers into Colbert's earpiece, "Keep it going." Ratings gold. Colbert forces a grin, his voice trembling with mock amusement. "Oh, we're doing this tonight, huh?" Musk folds his hands, that unnerving calm returning. "We always were." A chill runs through the room. No music, no laughter. Just two men, one wielding wit, the other unflinching dominance, locked in what would soon become the most talked-about late-night moment of the year. And as the cameras rolled on, the line between entertainment and humiliation began to blur. When the show returned from commercial, the air inside the studio was charged, a silent tension that even the upbeat jingle couldn't wash away. The audience clapped half-heartedly, their smiles uncertain, their eyes darting between Colbert's fixed grin and Musk's expressionless stare. Something had changed. What started as a talk show had turned into a duel. Intellect versus ideology, satire versus supremacy. Colbert tried to regain control, slipping back into his rhythm. "So," he said, hands gesturing wide, "let's talk about your vision, Elon. You've said humanity's survival depends on leaving Earth. I mean, sounds a little dramatic, doesn't it?" A ripple of laughter swept the audience, but Musk didn't join in. Instead, he looked directly at Colbert and said, "Stephen, the only thing more dramatic than trying to save the planet is pretending it doesn't need saving." The crowd went quiet. That's when it became clear. Musk wasn't here for jokes. He was here for vindication. Behind the scenes, producers exchanged nervous looks. The control booth whispered, "He's going off script again." But it was too late. The moment had momentum. Colbert leaned back, crossing his legs with forced calm. "All right," he said, "let's play along. You've got Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink X, all these projects claiming to help humanity. But some say you're spreading yourself thin. Some say you're not building the future, you're buying it." The audience murmured, hungry for confrontation. Musk tilted his head, his tone shifting from defensive to dissecting. "I'm not buying the future," he said. "I'm making sure there is one." Colbert chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "And who decides what that future looks like?" "You?" Musk's gaze didn't waver. "Someone has to start," he replied. "And I don't see comedians launching rockets." The crowd gasped again. Even through the bright lights, you could see beads of sweat forming on Colbert's brow. He was used to controlling the tone, to shaping the narrative through humor, turning tension into punchlines. But Musk wasn't playing his game. He was rewriting the rules live in front of millions. What no one knew was that this wasn't the first time Musk had clashed with a mainstream figure. For months, late-night hosts had mocked his tweets, his controversies, his erratic decisions, easy fodder for monologues. But Musk had reached a breaking point. Tonight, he'd come armed with words sharper than any script. "You make fun of people like me," Musk said suddenly, voice steady, "because it's easier than understanding what we're trying to do. You get laughs. I get rockets in orbit." The audience fell dead silent. Colbert blinked, thrown off for the first time. He straightened his cue cards, his tone turning icy. "You know, Elon," he said, "if you can't take a joke, maybe you shouldn't come on a comedy show." Musk smirked. "If the joke's good, I'll laugh. If it's lazy, I'll correct it." The crowd erupted, half in applause, half in stunned disbelief. Musk had just flipped the stage dynamic. The comedian, master of timing, was now on the defensive, and the engineer, the so-called emotionless billionaire, was commanding the room. And yet, beneath that steel confidence, something else simmered in Musk's voice. Fatigue. The exhaustion of a man constantly caricatured, misread, painted as the villain in a story he thought he was saving. For Colbert, this was television gold. But for Musk, this was a mission, a moment to reclaim control. As the crowd's noise settled, Colbert forced a polite smile. "Well," he said, "I didn't know we'd be doing philosophy tonight." Musk leaned back, eyes locked on him. "It's not philosophy," he replied. "It's reality. Some people just prefer to laugh at it instead of face it." The line landed like thunder. Gasps, whispers, applause. The studio was a storm of emotion. And just when it seemed the host might recover, Musk delivered one final piercing look. "This isn't entertainment, Stephen," he said quietly. "This is the truth. And sometimes the truth doesn't fit into a joke." That's when the camera caught it, Colbert's smile fading into silence. The clash wasn't over. It was only deepening. Because what came next wouldn't just rattle Colbert, it would make headlines worldwide. Long before that explosive night, Stephen Colbert had built a reputation as America's clever conscience. The smiling skeptic, the late-night truth-teller who used humor to pierce hypocrisy. To millions, he wasn't just a comedian. He was a voice of reason in an era of chaos. His desk had seen politicians, celebrities, scientists, all subjected to his brand of charm, wit, and surgical teasing. But that night, something felt different. This wasn't just another celebrity guest. This was Elon Musk, the billionaire visionary who divided the world between believers and critics. To Colbert, Musk wasn't an icon. He was a symbol of unchecked power. Weeks before the interview, producers had pitched the segment as a fun conversation about Mars and innovation. But Colbert had other plans. "We'll talk Mars," he'd told his writers, "but let's not forget Earth and the people living on it." He wanted accountability, not adoration. The setup was clear. Challenge the myth, humanize the man. His team dug through headlines, union disputes, controversies on social media, comments that sparked outrage. Every detail was fuel for sharp commentary. The goal wasn't to humiliate Musk. Not exactly. It was to test him. To remind viewers that no matter how high someone flew, they were still bound by gravity. But what Colbert underestimated was how much Musk had changed. The playful showman who once danced on SNL had been replaced by someone more guarded, more combative. Years of public ridicule had hardened him. He wasn't coming to laugh. He was coming to win. In the green room before the show, producers noticed the tension. Colbert rehearsed his lines, pacing, tweaking jokes to hit just the right nerve. Musk sat quietly, scrolling through his phone, unmoved. "You nervous?" one staffer asked with a nervous laugh. Musk didn't look up. "Only if we run out of facts." That was the tone he carried onto the stage. Clinical, confident, and coldly efficient. Colbert's warmth met Musk's detachment, and the clash was inevitable. Behind the scenes, the network had its own agenda. A Colbert-Musk confrontation meant viral clips, trending hashtags, and rating spikes. Executives knew tensions sold better than small talk. The more sparks, the better. And Colbert, master of controlled chaos, was their best weapon. But Musk wasn't a typical guest. His empire wasn't built on charm. It was built on obsession, risk, and relentless willpower. He had faced engineers, investors, regulators, and rival billionaires. A comedian, no matter how sharp, wasn't going to make him flinch. Still, Colbert had a knack for precision strikes, using humor as armor and intellect as ammunition. He'd exposed hypocrisy with a punchline before. He could do it again. In his mind, Musk represented everything dangerous about modern ambition. Power without pause, technology without accountability, ego disguised as enlightenment. So when Colbert leaned across the desk that night, firing questions about workers' rights, ethical AI, and billionaire responsibility, it wasn't random. It was targeted, surgical. He wanted to strip away the mystique and show the man underneath. But what Colbert didn't anticipate was how fiercely Musk would push back. Not with jokes, but with conviction. Every jab landed, but every counter-strike from Musk hit harder. In the control room, producers watched the live feed, realizing they were witnessing something rare, not a comedy skit. By the time the second commercial break rolled around, Colbert's confidence had shifted. The jokes weren't landing, the rhythm was off, and the guest, the supposed villain, was now commanding the narrative. He'd walked into the lion's den and made the lion question his own roar, and when the cameras came back on, Colbert would try one last tactic: reclaim control through charm. But what followed next would backfire, spectacularly, because in trying to expose Elon Musk, Colbert would end up exposing himself. To understand why Elon Musk didn't flinch that night, why the smirks, the jabs, the public ridicule slid off him like rain, you have to go back to what built him. Because Musk wasn't born into applause, he was built in resistance. Growing up in Pretoria, South Africa, he was the quiet kid with too many ideas and not enough belonging. He was mocked for dreaming too big, too strange. While others played outside, he read physics books and science fiction, trying to imagine a world that wasn't bound by the cruelty he saw around him. In school, bullies once threw him down a flight of stairs so hard he couldn't breathe. But he got up, again and again. That pattern, failure, pain, then relentless comeback, became his blueprint. When he moved to America, he called it the place where anyone could build the future. It wasn't just a dream, it was an obsession. He coded until sunrise, slept on office floors, showered at the gym. PayPal wasn't luck, it was grit. SpaceX wasn't privilege, it was the willingness to risk everything and lose it all, just to try. But as his vision grew, so did the backlash. Every tweet, every move, every word was dissected by pundits, mocked by comedians, magnified by critics. What people called ego, Musk saw as armor, the only way to survive in a world that worships success but punishes those who chase it. And so, when he sat across from Colbert under those blinding studio lights, Musk wasn't just a billionaire defending himself. He was a man who had spent decades fighting to be taken seriously. Now facing a culture that found easier laughter in tearing down than in understanding, he didn't hate Colbert. In fact, part of him admired the man's intellect. But he knew this stage wasn't neutral ground. He wasn't there as a visionary. He was the designated spectacle, the genius turned meme, the idealist turned villain. The late-night host would play the people's voice, and Musk would be the monster the crowd could safely boo. But that night, Musk had decided to flip the script. He'd come prepared. Not with jokes, but with composure. Every question, every sarcastic twist, he'd anticipated it. And every answer he gave was deliberate. Stripped of charm, loaded with truth, because Musk wasn't performing for applause. He was performing for history. He believed humanity was running out of time. Between climate change, resource collapse, and social polarization, he saw only two paths: evolve or extinguish. To him, rockets and AI weren't toys. They were lifeboats. And while people laughed at his eccentricities, he saw the mockery as proof of short-term thinking. The same kind that laughed at the Wright brothers, Edison, Jobs. And yet, deep down, there was weariness. The kind that comes from being both revered and reviled. Musk had been praised as a genius and condemned as a tyrant, sometimes in the same breath. The constant scrutiny had carved away his warmth, leaving only the shell of purpose. Precise, clinical, unyielding. That's why, when Colbert teased him about playing God, Musk didn't laugh. He'd heard that line before. Every visionary does. It's the oldest weapon in humanity's fear of progress. Ridicule. But Musk's calm wasn't arrogance. It was control. The patience of a man who knew time would vindicate him, not applause. So, when the crowd gasped at his retorts and social media lit up with Musk's Colbert, Elon Musk didn't see a PR crisis. He saw validation. Proof that people were still paying attention. He knew the interview wasn't about who won. It was about what message would echo louder: laughter or legacy. And as the next segment began, Colbert would push harder, aiming to shake that composure. But Musk was ready, because the moment he'd waited, for his whole life, the moment when intellect faced entertainment, had finally arrived, and he wasn't about to lose it to a punchline. The tension began quietly, like static before a lightning strike. Stephen Colbert leaned forward in his chair. That trademark smirk plastered across his face. The studio lights gleamed off his cue cards, each one loaded with lines meant to draw blood wrapped in humor. "So, Elon," he began, voice casual but eyes sharp, "you've said humans need to colonize Mars to survive. Are we talking about saving humanity, or just giving billionaires a new planet to ruin? The audience erupted in laughter, exactly as scripted. Musk didn't move. His expression remained unreadable, the faintest flicker of amusement crossing his face. "I'm talking about ensuring humanity has a future," he said calmly. "If we can make life multiplanetary, we guarantee survival beyond Earth's inevitable lifespan." Colbert tilted his head, feigning curiosity. "So, instead of fixing the planet we just abandon it? Sounds like the world's most expensive moving plan? More laughter?" Musk's jaw tensed. He'd expected the joke, but there was something biting beneath Colbert's tone, a kind of smug dismissal that grated against his patience. "It's not about giving up," he replied, his voice low but firm. "It's about preparing for possibilities. Earth won't last forever, and pretending it will is what's reckless." The crowd's laughter faltered. The air shifted. Colbert leaned back, pretending to be impressed. "Okay, Elon, fair point. But let's talk about your employees, the ones working 100-hour weeks while you're tweeting memes about Mars. How's that part of humanity's future?" The jab landed. Even the band stopped mid-tune. Musk paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. Not in anger, but calculation. "When you're trying to change the world," he said, choosing his words carefully, "you don't measure time by comfort. You measure it by impact." Colbert didn't blink. "So exhaustion is innovation now?" That line hit the audience like a spark. Some clapped. Others went silent. Musk's lips curved into the faintest smirk. "No," he said. "Complacency isn't." A murmur rippled through the room. Colbert's smile faltered just slightly. The first crack in his armor. Musk had shifted the balance. What was supposed to be a late-night comedy segment was turning into a duel. Intellect versus irony. Sensing the shift, Colbert tried to pivot. All right, he said, half laughing. "But let's be real. Between your rocket explosions, your Twitter wars, and your robot cars, you've given us enough entertainment for a decade. Maybe you should start charging for drama." Musk leaned forward. "I'm not here to entertain you, Stephen. I'm here because progress isn't supposed to be comfortable. Or pretty." The audience gasped. That wasn't a line they'd expected. Colbert blinked, stunned by the bluntness. He forced a chuckle. "That's one way to say you're welcome, I guess." Musk didn't smile. "No," he said quietly. "It's one way to say we either build or we burn." The silence that followed was heavy. Even the laughter sign flashes failed to bring the crowd back. Colbert shuffled his cards, his rehearsed rhythm broken. Behind the camera, the producers exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't the viral laugh segment they'd planned. This was a man stripping the show of its artifice. And it was mesmerizing. Colbert tried to regain footing. "Well," he said, feigning a light tone, "if Mars doesn't work out, maybe you can host your own talk show." Musk's reply came like ice. Only if truth was allowed on it. That line landed like a gavel. The audience's murmur grew. Some gasped, others clapped hesitantly. Colbert froze, visibly caught off guard. It wasn't the insult he'd expected. It was the mirror he hadn't wanted to see. The director's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Cut to commercial, now." But it was too late. The cameras had already captured the look. Colbert's forced grin fading as Musk stared him down, unblinking. For a fleeting moment, the balance of power had shifted entirely, and as the stage lights dimmed for break, it wasn't Stephen Colbert who looked in control. It was Elon Musk, calm, cold, and quietly victorious. As soon as the red on-air light flicked off, the illusion shattered. The studio, moments ago filled with laughter and applause, was now wrapped in tense, humming silence. The crew sprang into motion, camera operators muttering, producers waving their hands in frantic circles, and Colbert's stage manager hurrying over to his desk with a clipboard shaking slightly in her grip. Stephen Colbert removed his earpiece, jaw tight. What the hell was that? He snapped under his breath, still wearing the remnants of his TV smile. The producer, a wiry man named Kent, approached cautiously. He went off script, Stephen. You pushed him and he— I always push, Colbert interrupted, running a hand through his hair. That's the show. That's the point. But he didn't play along. He made it ugly. Across the stage, Elon Musk sat still, unfazed, his calm demeanor in stark contrast to the chaos brewing around him. He was scrolling through his phone, almost serenely, as if the entire exchange had been nothing more than a mild inconvenience. One of his aides leaned close, whispering something. Musk nodded slowly, then looked up, eyes following Colbert like a hunter studying prey. Kent glanced nervously between them. "We can cut that segment," he said quietly. "Edit out the tension, smooth it over in post." Colbert's eyes flashed. "No, it's going viral already. You think we can hide that?" He pointed toward Musk. He came here to look human, relatable, and instead he looked like a supervillain. The floor manager called out, 30 seconds to air! But Colbert wasn't ready. His confidence, the sharp comedic armor he wore nightly, had cracked. He wasn't used to losing control on his own stage. He turned to Kent again. "You want me to just smile and move on?" Kent hesitated. "You can try diffusing it. Joke your way out. He's a genius, but he's volatile. Don't poke him again." Colbert sneered, grabbing his mug. "Volatile sells." Meanwhile, Musk's team whispered rapidly near the stage entrance. One assistant murmured, "He's going to double down, Elon. Maybe we walk out." Musk looked up, expression unreadable. "No," he said softly. He started something. "I'll finish it." The countdown hit 5, 4, 3. And we're back. The audience clapped mechanically as the lights flared back to full brightness. Colbert plastered on his practiced grin, the kind that never reached his eyes. "We're here with Elon Musk," he said, voice slightly too loud. "And boy, things got interesting before the break." A polite laugh from the audience. Musk met his gaze, lips twitching. "That's one word for it." Colbert chuckled awkwardly, trying to regain control. "You're quite the conversationalist, Elon. You've got Twitter-level savagery in person." Musk leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I prefer honesty. Most people don't." The audience murmured again. They could feel it, that crackling energy that couldn't be faked. Colbert shifted in his seat. "Honesty is good television," he said with a grin that didn't hide his unease. "Truth," Musk corrected quietly, "is better." Kent was in the control booth now, rubbing his temples. "This is a train wreck," he muttered. "And people are going to love it." As the segment rolled on, Colbert attempted to steer the conversation toward lighter topics. AI jokes, Tesla memes, anything to diffuse the tension. But Musk wasn't taking the bait. Each of his answers was sharp, precise, unflinching. When Colbert joked about Musk's Twitter tantrums, the billionaire calmly replied, "It's not a tantrum when you refuse to be silenced." Gasps. Applause. Half the audience looked stunned. The other half looked ready to cheer. By the time they reached the next break, the energy in the room was electric and unstable, like a thunderstorm waiting for one more strike. As the lights dimmed again, Colbert leaned toward his producer and whispered, "If he stays another segment, I'm walking off." Kent didn't blink. "If you walk off," he said quietly, "he wins." That single line hung heavy in the air. Colbert looked back toward Musk, who was still sitting calmly under the stage lights, collected, confident, and utterly unbothered. For the first time in his career, Stephen Colbert realized he wasn't in control of his own show, and Elon Musk knew it. The next segment was supposed to be harmless, a fun wrap-up about space tourism. But the room had changed. The laughter had curdled into tension, and the smiles felt painted on. Even the band, unsure whether to play lightly or brace for impact, struck a hesitant tune that died halfway through Colbert's intro. "All right," Colbert said, forcing a grin. "Let's talk about Mars, the dream, the journey, and how much it'll cost regular folks like us." Musk adjusted his microphone calmly, his tone measured. "It's not about cost, Stephen. It's about courage. The willingness to do something humanity's never done before." "That's inspiring," Colbert replied quickly, his voice coated in sarcasm. "But maybe fix Earth before you colonize Mars, huh?" The audience chuckled, relieved for a joke. But Musk didn't laugh. His eyes locked on Colbert, and his reply came like a quiet explosion. "Maybe people like you," he said, "should stop mocking the ones trying to fix things." A hush fell. Colbert froze, half laugh still on his face, the kind of expression you wear when you realize you've just been hit, and everyone saw it. He tried to recover. "Elon, come on! We're just having fun here." "Fun?" Musk said sharply. "You think it's fun to undermine people pushing boundaries? You talk about empathy, but mock those taking risks for the future." The audience didn't know what to do. Half of them gasped. The rest stared at Musk spellbound. Colbert's voice wavered. "I joke about everything, Elon. Presidents, pop stars. Everyone gets it. It's called humor." "Humor," Musk shot back, leaning forward, "dies when it's used to hide insecurity." The silence was absolute. The only sound came from the whirring of cameras, recording every second of this unfiltered confrontation. Colbert's producer whispered frantically in his earpiece, "Wrap it, now." But Colbert didn't move. He was staring at Musk, eyes wide, pride bleeding into frustration. "You don't get to tell me what humor is. You came here for an interview, not a lecture." Musk's reply was devastatingly calm. "Then maybe ask better questions." The audience erupted, some in gasps, others in nervous applause. The energy split the room in half. Colbert stood, trying to retake control. "Okay, you know what? Maybe that's enough space talk for one night." But Musk didn't let him end it. He rose too, facing him directly. "No, Stephen. You invited me here to talk about the future. Maybe the problem is you're too afraid to see it." The camera light blinked red, still rolling. The director mouthed, "Cut." But nobody dared stop. Colbert looked like he wanted to respond, to reclaim his stage, but the words didn't come. Musk simply turned, smoothed his jacket, and began walking off. A stunned hush filled the studio. The audience watched as Elon Musk, one of the most powerful men on Earth, walked off the set of The Late Show on his own terms. The crowd broke into murmurs. Colbert exhaled shakily, forcing a laugh that didn't hide the tremor in his voice. "Well," he said weakly, "that's one small step for Elon, one giant leap for awkward television." The band hesitated, then played him to commercial. Their notes hollow, uneasy, but the damage was done. The night wasn't comedy anymore. It was confrontation, and every second of it was about to go viral. The moment the show cut to commercial, chaos broke loose. Producers scrambled to regain control, but it was already too late. The clip of Elon Musk walking off The Late Show was rocketing across social media at the speed of scandal. Within 30 minutes, it hit Twitter, then Reddit, then YouTube. Musk vs. Colbert, Where Elon Walks, and Colbert Clash dominated the top trends. Millions replayed the same 30-second moment. Musk's glare, Colbert's frozen grin. The audience caught mid-gasp as laughter turned to silence. At first, the reaction was predictable. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire meltdown on live TV." Commentators mocked Musk's thin skin. But then the internet did what it always does. It rewrote the story. A slowed-down version of the clip appeared on TikTok, layered with cinematic music and bold text quoting Musk's final words. "Maybe the problem is you're too afraid to see the future." That edit alone racked up 20 million views overnight. Suddenly, the man mocked as cold and arrogant looked like something else entirely. Defiant, visionary, unyielding. Comment sections ignited. "He's right," one post read. "People love to joke about dreamers until they make it real." Others fired back. "That's not confidence, that's a God complex." But either way, everyone was talking, debating, hooked. By morning, late-night hosts and political panels had weighed in. Some called it arrogance. Others called it authenticity. News outlets labeled it the moment comedy met consequence. Meanwhile, Colbert's team scrambled to spin the narrative. Press releases called the moment spirited debate. Editors trimmed clips from the rerun. Yet the full exchange lived on. Raw, unedited, viral, and through it all, Musk stayed silent. For 3 days, not a single comment. No statement, no defense. Until finally, a tweet appeared. "Some people mock the stars because they're afraid of the dark." That single line shattered the silence. Within hours, it became a rallying cry. Artists turned it into digital posters. Tech influencers quoted it over montages of rockets and innovation. Even skeptics admitted it was poetic, calculated, unforgettable. Across the internet, one theme began to rise above the noise. This wasn't about a billionaire and a comedian. It was about vision versus ridicule. About how every generation mocks the next until it realizes the joke was on them. When Colbert finally addressed the incident days later, his smile was careful, almost respectful. "Next time," he said, "maybe we'll keep the rockets outside the studio." The crowd laughed, but something in his tone had shifted. Pride replaced by humility, and maybe that was the real moment of clarity. Not when Musk walked off, but when the laughter faded and people realized what they had witnessed. Not an outburst, but a collision between comfort and change. Because in that one heated exchange, a bigger truth was laid bare. We live in a world that fears dreamers until they prove us wrong. As the lights dimmed, the world replayed the silence, the walk-off, the unshaken stare. The moment vision refused to apologize, and that's what made it unforgettable. Sometimes the most powerful statement isn't shouted or staged. It's the calm of a man who stands his ground, says nothing more, and walks away, leaving the world to argue over what it just saw, because in the end, The clash wasn't about ego. It was about evolution, and when history looks back, it won't remember the punchline. It'll remember the pause that followed.